Chapter 2443, The 100 Monkeys Effect 1. At that moment, Professor Da Vinci sat before a metal desk crafted from a special alloy, his hands cradling his chin as a gleam of wisdom flashed in his eyes. He spoke slowly, his voice deep and magnetic. "Zhang Yi, have you heard of the 100 Monkeys Effect?" Zhang Yi furrowed his brow slightly, pondered for a moment, then shook his head. Professor Da Vinci smiled, tracing an arc in the air with his pen. The 100 Monkeys Effect was a psychology and group consciousness experiment from the last century. Scientists observed a monkey troop on a remote island and taught one monkey to use tools to clean sweet potatoes. Remarkably, once the 100th monkey learned this behavior, other monkeys, who had never interacted with the island's troop, began spontaneously mimicking it. He paused, his eyes glinting with profound meaning. At that moment, humanity first suspected that consciousness, or rather, the collective subconscious, might be interconnected on a deeper level. Not merely as individuals, but as a form of psychological resonance transcending time and space. Brian grinned wryly. "Professor, are you suggesting our brains are all sharing Wi-Fi?" Professor Da Vinci smiled faintly, offering no denial. "In a sense, that is indeed the case." He extended his hand and tapped the tabletop. The projection system instantly illuminated, revealing a model of the human brain where neural lights danced like stars. Now, consider this: humans conducting embryo experiments to extract fragments of ether, an extremely high-dimensional crystallization of psychic energy, originating from the cosmic consciousness's reflux. If this energy combines with human genes, it can generate supernatural abilities and grant access to higher spiritual dimensions. A flicker of curiosity crossed Zhang Yi's eyes. "So you're saying large-scale embryo experiments could affect all of humanity?" "Precisely." Professor Da Vinci pushed his glasses up, his voice growing hushed. "When a collective group engages in high-dimensional consciousness interference, especially manipulations involving life, soul, and spirit, it triggers resonance within the collective unconscious. Even if individuals across nations remain strangers, their brains, emotions, and dreams resonate within the same quantum sea of consciousness." Zhang Yi rubbed his chin thoughtfully. "So, the extensive experiments in embryo labs are like implanting a viral code into the collective human mind?" Professor Da Vinci nodded solemnly. "Precisely. Even the energy fluctuations from just a few thousand embryos could spread unconsciously, affecting humanity's collective spiritual frequency. Those nightmares, hallucinations, violent impulses, and surges of supernatural awakening may all be linked to this latent interference." Zhou Qi frowned deeply upon hearing this. "Does that mean humanity has already been unknowingly contaminated by its own creations?" "Contaminated?" Professor Da Vinci sighed softly, a hint of coldness in his smile. "Perhaps we should call it resonance. It's a side effect of evolution. The closer humanity approaches the realm of the divine, the more likely it is to touch the boundaries of the entire species' collective subconscious. The fluctuations of consciousness transmit not only thought, but also chaos." He spread his hands. "You all already know of the existence of the ether, and understand that humanity's essence is fragments of ether. Fundamentally, we all belong to a single whole. So isn't resonance perfectly natural?" Another profound scientific concept, yet Zhang Yi sensed something extraordinary about this phenomenon. Could it be that humanity as a whole has sensed an impending crisis, forcing this evolution? He shook his head with a smile. "Who cares? If it makes the 6th generation stronger, that's a good thing. After all, between nations, it was mostly competition, rarely intent on total annihilation of a race. But when the enemy became another human race, it could very well become a war of extermination. When calamity struck, the 6 generations found themselves relying on each other. The outside world had changed, and Zhang Yi himself had changed. He had no immediate plans to visit the Dragon Clan. After a day's rest, he immediately locked himself in a vast, empty underground training chamber. He summoned Ling from the dimensional space to guide him. His gains this time extended far beyond mere resources and power. He sought to fuse these energies into a single, cohesive force, his own power. only then could he truly master his destiny. Nordic, Vatican. Since the Ice Age descended, an eternal chill and solitude had permeated this place. Even the headquarters of the sacred Eastern Orthodox Church, reverberating with its revered white hues, radiated an unmistakable coldness. Though the Holy See adherents did not embrace the asceticism of the Brahmanic sect, they maintained a tradition of reverence for the Lord. They believed the Son of God had suffered and died to atone for humanity's sins. Thus, outwardly, they did not indulge in worldly pleasures. Yet within the residences of bishops, priests, and Knights Templar, comfortable heating systems and fireplaces were installed. Amidst swirling snow, a crimson figure strode before St. Peter's Basilica. Cardinal Arnold Olive, the first of the 4 horsemen of the Apocalypse, the Death Knight, codenamed Michael, carried a thick volume of sacred scriptures. His expression solemn, he approached the cathedral. Arriving at the base of the steps before St. Peter's Basilica, he bowed deeply toward the entrance before speaking, "Your Holiness, Sister Leibniz has returned from the moon. She and Father Orion have completed their mission. There is vital intelligence that must be reported to you in person." As his words fell, the sacred scriptures in his hands suddenly trembled. A translucent white spirit emerged from the tome, drifting slowly to his side. It was none other than the Plague Knight, mourning Sister Leibniz. At the time, she and Orion faced an urgent siege by Zhang Yi and his forces, leaving no time for a spatial transfer back to the Vatican. Thus, Orion sacrificed himself, employing a forbidden method, abandoning Leibniz's physical form and transmitting only her spirit. A spirit form, a fusion of ether and memory, exists at a higher dimensional plane. Thus, it transcends the constraints of time and space. Even across the vastness of the cosmos, it could be guided back to the Vatican according to its coordinates. Sister Leibniz stood before the cathedral, her hands clasped before her. "Your Majesty, Father Orion has fallen in battle." The perpetrators were the Chaos of Huashu Kingdom, Britannia's Knights of the Round Table, Kutan Empire's Saladin, and Colombia's Natural Science Association. Though we faced encirclement by multiple formidable foes, we did not betray your trust and completed the collection mission. Chapter 2444, The 100 Monkeys Effect 2. The news brought back by mourning Sister Leibniz had already drawn immense attention. When her spirit body was brought back to the church, the surrounding Eastern Orthodox Church believers were filled with shock and unease. This nun, who had once devoted herself silently within the monastery, now appeared as a spirit body, proof that her physical form had been utterly destroyed. Within the Holy See's palace, Cardinal Arnold Olive led Leibniz's spirit before the holy steps, requesting an audience with Pope Alexander X. Nearly everyone felt sorrow for the tragic fate of this former saintly figure. Especially when her spirit appeared before the Pope, the profound silence and solemnity that moment imparted an extraordinary sacredness to the entire church. Yet, just as all expected the Pope to act, he did not emerge from the cathedral. After a long wait, Olive and Leibniz finally saw a figure clad in white vestments step out from the dim doorway. He stood silently atop the steps, gazing down at the 2 horsemen of Apocalypse before him. It was not the Pope. Instead, it was the blond youth who had stood beside the Pope all along, George Higgins. "My children, you have done well." His voice was cool and clear, his gaze as icy as the look in his eyes, revealing a depth and world-weariness unmatched by his years. Arnold Olive was momentarily startled, a flicker of surprise crossing his eyes. "My child." This struck them as absurd. Higgins was only 16, in the prime of his youth. During his years serving Pope Alexander X, he had been showered with favor. Yet no matter how highly the Pope esteemed him, he should not address 2 esteemed horsemen of Apocalypse in such a tone. "Who are you?" Olive asked gravely, his eyes clouded with confusion. "Alexander X is dead," Higgins stated flatly, his voice utterly devoid of emotion. Yet these words sent shockwaves rippling across St. Peter's Square. "The Pope is dead. The sky has fallen on the Holy See." Before they could react, Higgins delivered his second declaration. "From this day forward, I am the new Pope." He slowly raised his palm. A sacred radiance emerged from his hand, coalescing before the crowd into an ancient tome. Its pages were worn and tattered, as if unearthed from the dust of centuries. Yet its frailty could not obscure its sacredness. Instead, it conveyed an aura of timeless endurance, weathered by the ages. That is the original Book of Revelations. Olive and Leibniz exclaimed in astonishment. The Book of Revelations was the Pope's authority, only the Pope himself could wield it. Even when bestowed upon subordinates, he could reclaim it at any moment. It embodied the entire Eastern Orthodox Church, the Holy See's grand aspirations and mighty power accumulated over millennia. Only the most devout believers could wield it. Yet now, it appeared in Higgins' hands. This signified that Higgins had gained the Book of Revelation's acknowledgement. This was no mere bloodthirsty attempt at usurping power, it was divinely granted authority. George Higgins, that young and handsome youth, now declared outright that he would inherit the title of Pope. Silence fell over the scene, as if this sudden shift were too much for anyone to process. George's bearing and aura did not belong to a young man, instead, he exuded an unusually profound and ancient quality. "You." Arnold attempted to speak, but the words failed him. George merely smiled faintly, his eyes concealing secrets unknown to others. "You. You are." Olive's eyes suddenly widened. He lifted his head to gaze at Higgins, and within those eyes, eyes that should have been young and clear, yet were distinctly weathered, he seemed to discern something. "Your Holiness." Cardinal Olive, once the most promising candidate for the succession of becoming the Pope, bowed his head in reverence. Leibniz, too, seemed to grasp something. She placed her hands over her chest and bowed deeply. With the horsemen of Apocalypse having acknowledged Higgins's status, the others, though inwardly puzzled, bowed in turn to express their support for his ascension. "From this day forward, I shall serve as Pope. You may address me as St. Peter too. The Vatican of today is no longer the Vatican of old." George spoke calmly, as if he had foreseen everything long ago. "Leibniz's death and the appearance of her spirit signify that we are entering a new era. And I am the one who can lead the Church into the future." Everyone sensed that aura. It seemed George's gaze and presence alone had plunged the entire hall into a stifling atmosphere. Though his handsome features radiated warmth, his piercing gaze and unwavering resolve made him appear far older than his years. The Pope's transformation, Leibniz's tragedy, and Higgins' sudden rise had plunged Vatican City into unprecedented turmoil. Within St. Peter's Basilica, atop the throne crafted of gold and jewels, Alexander X, who had lived over 120 years and was now little more than skin and bones, had completely transformed into a pile of skeletal remains. Higgins lifted his head, gazing toward the sky. Though it was broad daylight, the faint shadow of a pallid moon was discernible. "Mammon, Samuel. 5 more to go." Tianhai City's major district, deep within Tianhai Fortress's training chamber. Zhang Yi remained in seclusion, absorbing the power he had gained from the lunar people and Samuel, preparing to face an even fiercer storm. During this period, everyone was quietly making plans. The future world was no longer peaceful. Each person held their own objectives and missions, their intertwined relationships growing increasingly complex. Zhang Yi understood that no matter how powerful he became, fate's challenges would always approach him in ways beyond imagination. During his 3-day seclusion, Zhang Yi immersed himself in the meditation technique imparted by the Dark Moon High Priestess. This meditation technique differed vastly from any cultivation method he had encountered before, offering unprecedented insights and revelations. Compared to Wang Yangming's Heart Sutra, this meditation practice was more detailed and profound, like a sacred text that elaborated on the laws of the mind and the cosmos, guiding him into a brand new realm. The core principle of the meditation method was identical to that of the Heart Sutra: "I think, therefore I am." This concise philosophical proposition echoed persistently within his mind. The meditation technique was not mere introspection, but a deeper form of perception and understanding. Zhang Yi realized that supernatural abilities were not simply raw power. They were the power of the mind, an unfathomable connection between the soul and the cosmos. Chapter 2445, The 100 Monkeys Effect 3. When he quieted his mind to perceive the cosmic laws governing the universe, he could interact with the cosmos through his own thoughts. Ultimately, through this interaction, he altered the properties of matter, thereby gaining formidable supernatural abilities. He gradually integrated meditation into his cultivation practice. Each meditation session brought profound spiritual awakening. Gradually, Zhang Yi felt an unprecedented force awakening within him. It was a profound cosmic fluctuation, seemingly capable of sensing the movement and transformation of every speck of dust in the heavens and earth. He began to understand that supernatural abilities were not merely manifestations of power. They were a harmonious resonance between the mind and the cosmos, boundless potential gained by perceiving the laws of the universe. In ancient Huashu Kingdom, some called this the Way. To put it simply, it was like an NPC in a game studying the game's source code. Once they understood the underlying logic, they could exploit bugs, thus using minimal effort to achieve maximum impact. Over 3 days, he absorbed the origin of supernatural abilities. Whenever he encountered something he didn't understand, he simply asked. Ling Ling was like a cosmic encyclopedia. Ask her, and she'd tell you. Don't ask, and she wouldn't volunteer. Every question Zhang Yi had found its answer through her. Thus, one bottleneck after another was swiftly broken through. If the past 4 years of enhancing his supernatural had been like a beast devouring blindly, groping in the dark, then now he possessed a textbook. These 3 days of seclusion weren't just a mental breakthrough, they were a quantum leap in power. Zhang Yi felt his supernatural accumulating within him, the force deep within his soul beginning to manifest. He knew he had stepped into an entirely new tier. As his meditation deepened, his ability index surged like a beast awakening, soaring past 50,000 points and propelling him into the night level. This breakthrough wasn't merely an increase in strength, it was a profound understanding of the cosmic laws governing the universe, granting him an unprecedented sense of mental power. After 3 days of seclusion, Zhang Yi finally opened his eyes. His gaze was profound, radiating an indescribable resolve and power. He knew he was no longer a novice in the world of supernatural abilities, but a true powerhouse possessing the strength to alter destiny. Zhang Yi lay comfortably in the center of the vast training chamber. The entire empty space was shrouded in darkness, illuminated only by a single beam of light focused on his form. He lay sprawled out on the cool floor. Slowly, the floor behind him began to warp, transforming into a vast, circular, pitch-black swamp. A viscous darkness, dark enough to absorb light, surged from the abyss, enveloping Zhang Yi's body. Upon witnessing that power, Ling's eyes rippled softly. The material force of this universe. Though both were mutants, the supernatural energy Zhang Yi wielded was entirely distinct from others. All fundamental substances in the manifest universe ultimately stemmed from the elements: earth, water, fire, wind, metal, wood, water, fire, and earth. The manifestations of supernatural abilities could not escape these constraints. Yet the power Zhang Yi wielded existed beyond the forms of Kagago's power. This was the variable. Zhang Yi's breakthrough proceeded remarkably smoothly, as comfortable as soaking in a hot spring. Closing his eyes, he took a moment to visit the world of the ether. Within the vast sea of spiritual essence, a single thought brought Ling to him, Ling in her spirit form. "Do you know what's been happening to me lately?" Zhang Yi asked directly, skipping the small talk. The will at higher dimensional levels was omniscient and omnipotent. "I've seen it." Ling responded indifferently. "Fascinating. Your manifestation reveals entirely new possibilities for species evolution. Won't you stop me?" Zhang Yi countered with a smile, his eyes locked on Ling's, searching for clues in her gaze. Yet Ling merely smiled. "Zhang Yi, you've forgotten one thing. I am not your enemy. Nor am I your master. I am you, and you are me. You, I, and all sentient beings in the physical world are the very essence of the ether. You too are the creator." Zhang Yi's heart was shaken to its core. It's like when you play a game and immerse yourself in its world. Yet you don't belong to that game world, you remain yourself. You can control 1, 2, hundreds, even thousands of characters. But they are all you. Zhang Yi took a deep breath. But what if this game character of mine awakens? That is your freedom, and also my freedom. Ling offered Zhang Yi a gentle smile, extending arms formed of white radiance toward him. Go do everything you wish. Isn't that fascinating? Even if you fail, if a so-called death end occurs in the physical world, you'll merely return to the ether and merge with us. Zhang Yi stepped out of the training room. Yang Xinxin and Zhou Qir stood waiting at the entrance as usual. A hint of concern flickered in Zhou Qir's eyes, as if she sensed Zhang Yi had been through something extraordinary these past days. Seeing him emerge, a smile touched Zhou Qir's lips. You broke through? She immediately approached to show her concern, while Yang Xia handed him his favorite hot coffee milk tea. Hot drinks could lift one's spirits, so Zhang Yi enjoyed them when relaxing. In the past, due to the constant need to maintain combat readiness, Zhang Yi had been extremely strict about his diet. That concern vanished entirely after Zhou Qir reached Epsilon. Her abilities could directly perform body modification on Zhang Yi's physique to its theoretically optimal state, rendering rigorous training unnecessary. Still, daily martial practice remained essential to maintain his combat feel. Zhang Yi nodded. Yes, I've advanced to knight rank. He inquired about recent events outside. Yang Xinxin informed Zhang Yi that Brian and Professor Da Vinci had returned to Columbia. After all, their trip had been a vacation. As members of the Natural Science Association, they needed to return to work and clock in. Another major development concerned the Holy See. Alexander X is dead, Yang Xinxin stated. Zhang Yi was taken aback. The Pope is dead? As the leader of the Holy See, which commanded the world's largest congregation of devout believers, the Pope was arguably the most powerful figure on the planet. Zhang Yi had originally planned to unite nations after his seclusion to demand the Holy See provide explanations regarding the moon incident. This development complicated matters considerably. Sure enough, Yang Xinxin added, while you were in seclusion, the United World Government already issued an inquiry to the Vatican, demanding an explanation regarding the moon incident. However, Father Orion, the one involved, is dead, and Sister Leibniz has passed away. Even the Pope is dead. They've pinned the blame on the deceased. It's hard to pursue the matter further. Zhang Yi rubbed his temples. According to the rules of the Eastern Orthodox Church, Cardinal Arnold Olive should be the new Pope. No, Yang Xinxin shook her head. It's an unfamiliar name, a 16-year-old boy named George Higgins. Zhang Yi frowned, sensing that the Eastern Orthodox Church was plotting something. Let the coalition government handle negotiations with the Vatican. But they likely won't gain much. With the culprit dead, further wrangling would yield little. Zhang Yi saw no point in wasting energy on this. Next, we should meet Guan Wangyue. Zhou Qir and Yang Xia exchanged glances. The eyes of these cousins sparkled with exhilarated joy. The current Zhang Yi had reached the level of Zhenglu, the Hades gatekeeper, a being they had once only dared to look up to. This signified that their faction in Tianhai City now possessed strength capable of countering some powerful underground civilizations. Setting aside cosmic-level anomalies like the Drucker, they could now protect themselves in the apocalypse. Wonderful! Zhou Qir exclaimed excitedly. Yang Xia chimed in enthusiastically, everyone will be thrilled to hear this great news. She referred to the crowd within their group, as this information remained confidential for now and wouldn't be shared externally. If one asked why, it was simply Zhang Yi's old habit. Yang Xinxin approached, gazing at Zhang Yi as if admiring a perfect treasure, her eyes sparkling with anticipation. Brother Zhang Yi, let's go to Xinjing. I've already made arrangements with Guan Wangyue, we can head straight there.